Hi everyone, I am Vaishnavi KM. So now let's see a project on product management system using Spring Boot and MySQL. So our Spring Boot project uses Tomcat server internally and Postman API as a client for communication and MySQL as a database for storing the data. Spring Boot uses a layered architecture. This is where we get introduced into REST controller, which uses REST API in our controller layer. So let us see what are the layers involved. The presentation layer, that is web layer or controller layer. This is basically handles the HTTP requests and responses to the front end, that is client, using the it also connects the client to the service layer, where basically we have the business logic. And then data access layer, which is repository layer. This is the service layer is then connected to repository layer, which is connected to database. And model layer, which is also called as entity layer. Here we have our data structure, which is our table. So let's see the overview. Main purpose of our project is to develop a CRUD application for managing product records using Spring Boot. And what are the tech stacks I have used? That is Spring Boot, Spring Web, Spring Data JPM, MySQL and Java 17. So Spring Web is used for taking the other datas like other springs like Spring Core, Spring IOC and Spring MVC. But now we don't use MVC architecture, as it only works for those projects which has front end as JSP. But nowadays no one uses JSP as a front end, most probably, and many of them uses the React and Angular. So we don't prefer MVC. Now let's see what are the modules involved. Spring CRUD, this is my project, Spring CRUD project, where here I have in main Java I have a controller class, model class, repository class and service class. And in resources I have application properties. Here we mention the database, here we mention the Hibernate things and everything. So let's see the project now. So this is my Spring CRUD project, where I have the packages like com.sample and this com.sample.controller, because all sums up with this application. So com.sample.controller has controller class, sample.entity has product.java class, sample.repository has inventory repository class, and sample.service has inventory service class. Also we have application.properties, where we mention the things which we need, that is application name, which is Spring CRUD project, the port assigned is 8080, and the database used here is MySQL. The Hibernate DDL auto, this is what, as Hibernate is connected with JDBC and JDBC is connects the Java to database, we are mentioning what thing we should perform. Is it create, update or these things. We can use create for creating a table, but if we want to add a new data, what happens is the older version of the table get dropped and once again it creates. For this purpose I am not using create but update. So if there is no table, the table is created. If there is any table, it gets updated. And show SQL, this is true because we want to see what is the status of SQL, so we are giving this. And the data source.url, that is where is my database, that is Java, JDBC, MySQL, localhost and SpringDB. And username, that is what is the username of the database manager, your root and the password. So here we are taking driver class, which is com.mysql.cj.jdbc.driver, and com.mysql.cj is the newer version of only com.mysql.jdbc, that is now deprecated. So now let's see our first layer, that is product.java. Here we write what are the necessary things should be in our table or a data structure. So here I have ID, name, quantity and price of a product. So here why have given at ID? First of all, let's discuss what is at entity. At entity annotation will make this class as an entity and it creates a table in the database, and at ID makes the field a primary key, and here we are giving a generated value. This makes the ID auto generated. This is because if we sometimes we do operations on the data, and sometimes there may be confusion of giving the value, because the primary key entity is most important. We are giving it as an generated value, so the internally it gets generated, and we are using the constructor and the getter setters. So next is our service class, repository class. Here, so inventory repository is an interface, it's not a class. So this interface extends JPA repository. JPA repository is used for doing other other database tasks other than CRUD. So this JPA itself extends CRUD repository, which does a basic operations, but JPA repository does extra things which CRUD can't. And then this is a repository. Other than this, all others are classes, that is application.java, controller.java, service.java. These all are class, and repository.java is a interface. So then this gets connected into service. So service class is dependent on repository, because repository interface communicates with the database. So here we write the business logic in service layer. Here we are using annotation AutoWire. This is to inject the dependency. So in Spring Boot we used @AutoWire for creating the dependency. Now this service class is dependent on inventory repository package. So before we are taking this instance of this package, of this interface, we are giving @AutoWire annotation. So here we write business logic for saving the data, reading the data, deleting the data, updating the data, for these purposes. So now here you can see that for saving the data, that is for inserting the data, we are using save data method. For reading, we are using read all data method. For deleting, we are using delete product method. And here you are seeing the repository.save. In the repository interface we have save method, and in we have find all for reading all the data, and we have delete by ID for deleting a specific data with the particular ID. And we have for reading one data, we should give find by ID, so it particularly reads that specific ID data. And for updating, it's also same, we should give find by ID to specifically update that particular record. So then let's see inventory controller. Inventory controller has web services or this is also called as REST controller, which has REST APIs. So this further communicates with the front end or client, that may be React or Postman API, or either it can be Angular JS. So here, as we saw that the service is dependent on repository, same likewise this controller is should be dependent on the service. So here also we are giving at annotation auto wire, and here we also have request mapping. This is the mapping thing of this class. So when we give it in the client, we give with the with the server name we give /app and what service to be done. If it is insert, we give /insert. If it delete, we give /delete with the particular ID number. So say this wise, for inserting it is save data method we are using from service. For reading all data we are using read all data. For deleting a particular thing we are using delete product. And why we are using path variable? Path variable is used because when we give it in the client, we also specify the record unique number which should be deleted or updated or which should be read, which in that path we give a variable. That is why we here specify the annotation path variable. The same way for reading one record, it is get mapping with the path variable, and for updating also we require path variable. So this is controller class. Now we have seen it. Let's run the project. So you will run this as Spring Boot app. Okay, let's see what's happening. Okay, now let's go to Postman API, which is here. So here we are giving the URL http localhost, and as you remember that we have given there a port number 8080 / and I have set the request mapping, that is app, and with that we are giving what web service we want, that is we have given insert there. So here we are giving insert, and we should, for inserting we should give body, here it's raw, and it should be in a JSON format. Yeah, so let's see, let's insert a data into it. So what we have given here in the product.java, the same thing should be present, but we are not giving for ID as it is auto generated. The other fields are p name, p qtn, that is p quantity, and p price. So while giving this, it should be in double quotes, and you can give a name for it, and for this then you are giving price and something, how much you want, the quantity, and after inserting everything you should, after inserting one thing you should specify the comma until and unless it is not the last field. Yeah, so now you send it, but before here you should see what you are doing. You should give post because you are posting this to database, right? So let's give send. Yeah, here you can see status 200 OK, that is the request is successful and the server has responded. So this data is now will be in the database. So let's check that. Okay, till that gets which was a Spring DB. So and then the table name was product. See, I have already have some values. Now the inserted value was soap 90 and 10. So this was to insert a data. Then we will read the data. For reading purpose we will get the data and we'll give read all. Let's check once. It's in controller. Okay, read all. We are reading all the things sent. See, now we are reading all the data present in the database. So let's update one. For updating it is put. So we have already posted, so now we are changing the data, so we are giving it as put. Here in update, see the put mapping and it requires path variable too. So let's give update and I'm giving a PID. Let's take from here. Okay, 5 is my PID and I'm changing this to 100. So send. See, now the 10 was changed into 100 and then let's see the delete one, or let's read this. Read one. Read only one data is get. Read any data or read one data, it's get. So it have read this data and now let's delete the data. So delete and delete. You are deleting, send. So now this record has been deleted. Let's check. Let's read all, then we'll come to know it have been deleted or not. Okay. Read all. Okay, sorry, it is read all, so it's get and send. So it have read all data. Now the fifth one is with the 5 ID is not present. Thank you, that's it. And yeah, in the database it have been updated. A related thing is gone. Thank you.